Hello, everyone. Welcome back to SEC Roundup. As you know, I'm Tom Zuccaro, and with me is my partner, Nick Morgan. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Tom.
And today we're delighted to have with us Professor Alex Platt from the University of Kansas. Hello, Professor. How are you today?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Today's topic is the SEC's Whistleblower program, and a very fascinating article that Professor Platt recently published concerning his in-depth study of the program and awards which have been handed out in the last 10 years. Nick, let's start with you. We have had recent news about the successes of the Whistleblower program. I think the commission has said it's up to 1.3 billion in awards since the inception in 2012. Just last week, it awarded 16 million to two whistleblowers. One of those whistleblowers received 13 million of the 16, based upon the commission's assessment that it was extraordinary cooperation and information. So we hear so much about the success of the program and how helpful it's been for the enforcement division, but there must be flaws. There must be negatives. What have you seen, Nick, in your practice about the Whistleblower program?
Well, Tom, and to be clear, without some self-examination of the SEC's Whistleblower program, it really makes it hard to improve that program. And there's no program anywhere that can't stand to be improved in some way. So one of the shortcomings we talked about in an earlier episode was the issue of frivolous tips. And this is partly the SEC being a victim of its own success. When it advertises and hands out very large awards, that encourages a lot of people to submit tips, and some percentage of them are not going to be meritorious. That imposes a cost. So we talked about that in a previous episode. We saw Professor Platt's paper, which has a great title. It's the Whistleblower Industrial Complex, which suggests some other areas of improvement that the program might benefit from. And so what we were drawn to, and Tom, you and I have actually encountered this in some of our cases, is the program is not transparent. There's a lot of transparency about the dollar amounts of awards given out, but if you try to go beyond that, it's really hard to get information. And we know even in litigation, it's hard to get information about whistleblowers and tips and things like that. So reading Alex's paper was really eye-opening. And so it'll be good to hear from him about some of the points that he's identified in his paper.
Professor, let's turn to you. So you did this exhaustive study of all the SEC orders and CFTC orders through the end of 2020. What did you find, and what surprised you the most?
So I used the Freedom of Information Act to get information about all the lawyers and law firms who had represented successful whistleblowers from the program's inception through 2020. And what I found was really the solution to the problem you all were just talking about. The agency gets this flood of tips, 12,000 in a single year, most recently. How on earth do they get from 12,000 down to the, few dozen that they investigate very seriously and ultimately award? Well, the answer is they have outsourced this job of sifting through the tips to a very concentrated group of well-connected attorneys and law firms. I found in my study that a small group of firms is responsible for a pretty hefty chunk of the dollars paid out by the agency from the program's inception through the present. This raises the prospect that this program may not be completely operating in the public interest, but rather may have been captured to some extent by this group. Discuss that at length in the paper. One example of the problems that this may raise is the Fourth Amendment. So if you have former SEC attorneys who appear to be among the dominant players in this private whistleblower practice, if you have these attorneys who are in close contact with the current SEC enforcement attorneys, information passing back and forth about ongoing investigations. And if these private attorneys are then telling their clients who are still working at a firm what is needed by the government to complete its investigation. You might have some constitutional questions there. There are many other questions that I think the study raises as well.
Fascinating. Do you see any changes with the whistleblower program, or would you if you were in charge, would you recommend changes?
The good news in my study is that a lot of the problems that I've raised, I think, are pretty easily fixable just with what the agency does best, a little bit of disclosure and transparency. So a little bit more disclosure from the agency about the true costs of administering this program. You know, we hear from them that they've paid out $1.3 billion to whistleblowers. Not so. Most of that money has gone to whistleblowers, but a large chunk of it has not. It's gone to lawyers, other intermediaries who are actually administering the program. Let's be more transparent about the true cost of the program. We could impose some other kinds of oversight on the private attorneys as well. Wouldn't be too difficult, I think, to really help improve what is already a very important and successful government program.
And Professor, I assume the commission could take steps to limit the amount of money that goes to the whistleblower lawyers.
Yeah, sure. They could impose a flat fee cap, a percentage cap. They could impose some kind of procedural mechanism by which they review the fees before they are assessed. They could do other things that encourage more free and fair competition for these lawyer jobs. Right now, there's not free competition, really, because some firms have something no one else has, which is a steady flow of access to information at the agency because of the unique trust and prior connections they have with the agency. Makes it really hard if you're a great attorney out there, you want to do whistleblower practice, even if you're willing to do it at half the rate, you're not going to get the best clients because the best clients go with the person who has the agency's ear because they used to work at the agency. I don't think that's a recipe for the kind of program the SEC wants to be running.
Well, Professor, thank you for your fascinating analysis and your study. And we'll look forward to see if it results in any changes in how the whistleblower program operates in the future.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you, Professor Nick. Thank you. And we'll see everyone back in the next SEC Roundup.